Hi, welcome to Content Forum's chat. This week we are going to be talking about the state of content strategy in 2020. Sounds lofty, but I was inspired to talk about this topic because I realized the one-year anniversary of the ASE Research Foundation study on association content strategies in for a changing world was published just a year ago. And I started doing some scanning to see what was happening and how people were writing, publishing, and thinking about content strategy in associations and nonprofits. And I was pretty inspired to see at least a couple dozen recordings, articles, and presentations specific to content strategy in associations and nonprofits. And I know that was one of the goals that the foundation had, was to really raise the visibility of the practice in the profession. So I thought it was a good idea to just kind of get together and talk about what had happened just in the past year or recently about content strategy. So I'm glad TJ Peeler has joined us today from Beacon Fire Red. Good to see you,
Hi.
TJ.
Thanks.
So what's going on in your world with content strategy?
Yeah, well, I think that report that came out last year came out at a really good time for us on a project that we were working on for an association that we were just starting to kick off, and that was going to be heavily content focused because they were aware that they had a content overflow problem and a lot of outdated old content.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've just launched the redesign of their site, and I think that one of the things that's interesting to me is I feel like they just really recognized that they needed more governance help, which I feel like is kind of always a hard sell, right? Like I'm a consultant, so I feel like I'm always sort of pushing for it, but I feel like it's not always recognized as the value that it provides. But this client, particularly really wanted, this association client, really said, like, we need to have rules in place so that one of the things they wanted to do was create content for the 99%, not the 1%, but they knew they needed some guidance in place to say, when the 1% comes to us with this thing, what do we tell them, right? Like,
Right.
we can't just tell them, like,
Well,
no.
one
So
of
we
my
had to.
friends actually has the Staples stop button like on their desk so they can say no to content owners when they come in the office and say, hey, why don't we try this? And they're like, bam.
Yeah, I think
So that's
creating a
one
framework
governance
for
aspect.
reasons why you can say no, or like things that you can say, well, if you do this, this, and this, then come talk to us, or
Right.
try these things first, as opposed to just like, you don't want to feel like nobody. I mean, I hate saying no, so I, you know.
Hey, Lisa, thanks for joining us.
Hey, how are you guys?
Good. Great to see you.
Yeah, TJ, I was at your webinar yesterday and it was so good.
Well, thanks.
When I got done, I went downstairs and said to my husband, that was the best hour I've spent in months.
Thanks. That's really nice.
I wished it was longer, and I'm waiting like with bated breath to get the recording because I want to watch it again.
It's coming. That's so nice because we were running out of time at the end, and I was like, okay, we're gonna speed through this, and I'm sorry, we're not gonna have time for questions. So,
it was really good. I mean, I would have loved to have had a little more time and had time for questions and stuff, but
yeah,
it was so good, and it was
Thanks.
exactly what I needed. Like, that's where we are at this point. Is
awesome.
I'm trying to get some strategy and some structure in place, and so yeah, you guys really gave me a lot to think about yesterday. It was so good.
Awesome. Well, I'm super glad to hear that. We will be sending out the recording and the PowerPoint soon. Yeah.
Well, maybe you could, TJ, maybe you could write a brief summary and post it on the forum too.
Sure. Yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So Lisa, what was driving you to go to that session? You said that you were kind of right in that place where you were looking for help.
Well, so we are doing this whole knowledge management thing. It's been an ongoing nightmare. That is whatever. So we're doing this knowledge management thing. And, you know, one of the things that we hear all the time, which is what you guys mentioned yesterday, was that we have all this content, but nobody can find anything, right? And so how do you fix that? And we have a group of members who are very well-meaning, but don't really have a lot of understanding of, you know, websites at all, let alone, you know, our exact content and lots of other things. But and so they're trying to help us, they're trying to guide us. And I'm like, look, you guys, this is not your role. This is a staff role. And then I need to come to you and ask you questions. You guys are the subject matter experts and I am the website expert.
Right. Yep.
And so I need to like do some of this research and then come to you and ask you these questions. You know, a lot of the same things that you guys were talking about yesterday, like what does the 99% want? And how can do we already have it? And how can we get rid of the
stuff that no one's looking at?
20 years worth of stuff that no one's looking at.
20 years worth of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not actually joking. So then I actually went to our web developers who are really and we have a great relationship and they're super responsive. And I was like, look, I think there's some low-hanging fruit here that we could take advantage of now so that we can sort of show the board that we're making progress, because the board is like, oh, we need to see something, right? It has to be, we need to, and I'm like, I'm doing all this stuff on the back end. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not happening, right? But whatever. So, so our developers came up with a little tool for us. We are using their proprietary CMS, and they came up with this little tool for us that we could, it would improve search on our site, because we have a lot of pages behind members only, behind the paywall, and so Google isn't indexing those, and there are a lot of search tools that can't index those. So we came up with this tool that we're using Elasticsearch that will index behind the paywall and will index PDFs. And so then we need to put in some metadata, especially for all these PDFs, to indicate, you know, so you don't, when you see your search results, you're not just seeing a file name, whatever, it doesn't mean anything, right? So I've spent the last couple of weeks, and I still have a lot more to do, but I've spent the last couple of weeks, you know, going through like, what are these PDFs and why are they there? And literally some of them go back to like 2007, 2001, and you're just like, nobody's reading these. Right.
Yeah.
And everything has changed so much in the field that our members are looking at that they're not even relevant.
As soon as they see the date's 20 years old, like it's like.
Yeah. So, but God forbid we get rid of anything, right? We can't.
That's difficult that's hard if that's your stakeholders' thought, is that everything is of value. I feel like you kind of need like that, like a page distribution, you know, to sort of show like, these are our high value pages and like, look how many low value pages we got here.
Exactly. So then actually this morning I went into my Google Analytics and I was just looking to see like, one thing that I found was a little strange, and I'm sure this is me not understanding, but so I look at my CMS and it says I have, you know, 6,000 PDFs. Actually, we started at 6,300 PDFs, and I have already in 2 weeks deleted like 300 of them. Or
that's great.
Yeah, 300 of them at least. So that by itself feels like progress, right?
Sure.
But so then I went into Google Analytics and my CMS says I have like 2,000 or some such pages, But when I look in Google Analytics and I say, show me all of my content, it says 21,000. So that's kind of a big difference.
So some of it in analytics, it's recording the actual URL, and in your CMS, it's recording so some of it may be the difference between PDFs, and some of it may be UTM parameters. If you have any tracking parameters are you using any tracking parameters? Or are there multiple? So we had this problem with APTA when we were doing their content inventory, that they had some pages on their website had 18 different URLs that access the same page.
Wow.
And so trying to, we had I got to just shout out to my coworker, Jen, who's the, data wizard, was somehow able to try to pull that together as much as possible to identify what is really a page. Because a lot of times in Google Analytics, you'll see a page will show up multiple ways because you got different URLs, you got UTM parameters on something. PDFs don't usually show up on a page, depending on how you have your analytics tracking set up. Like PDFs don't usually show up as a page, they usually show up as an event. Yeah, okay, yeah.
And then I started like just kind of poking around, and there were at least a couple of URLs that it was showing on my Google Analytics that are not URLs that we even have. So is that just somebody tried typing it in and ended up
Was it going to a 404 page when you tried the URL?
When I looked when I went through Google Analytics, I said, show me this page, and it just goes to, there's no such page.
Yeah. So that means some place either on your site, if it's all paywall protected, there's a bad link. So that's like ideally it would be nice if you could figure out from the URL where that page is supposed to go, you could add a 301 redirect to where it's supposed to go, or maybe it's probably a broken link on your site or somebody else's site that someone's trying to access.
Yeah, I think it must be on somebody else's site because it's not even, it's not something that I would have ever put in, since it's me, I'm the web department.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
But it could be from, it could be in like a PDF or something too. Like it could be, a PDF, it could be an email, it could have been someone posting a social media link, like, I mean, it could be literally from anywhere.
Yeah. So anyway, as I was listening to you guys yesterday, I was like, this is what I need to start looking at the actual analytics and then going to the member committee and or our senior staff and say,
right,
no one has looked at this page since, 2015, why do we still have it?
Right.
And that is one of the things that I've been finding as I'm going through all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen, and I'm sure you have too, TJ and Lisa, you might use this to make the case, is if they still feel like there's something in that content that's valuable, rewrite it as a new item, right?
Yes.
But get rid of whatever the junk part of it is.
Just update it. Like if it's really worth still having from 2015 or 20 years ago, then like update it, or at least review it and say it's totally up to date. Now we'll update the date. If it's still evergreen,
Right.
But I've mostly seen the evergreen things be like regulatory information or something that never goes away, but still has to be there because it relates to the industry or profession. But
because just like you were saying, that like if people go to it and they see that the page is really old, it makes them distrust the information.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, and that's
Tina, how are you?
I'm doing good. I haven't seen
you so long.
I know, it feels like a while. I was just saying to TJ before you got on, my inspiration for this whole idea of discussion was, the year since the research was published, and just, I think I was inspired that I was seeing more things starting to be written specifically about content strategy or presentations specific to it and things like that. So I feel like one of the goals of the research is definitely starting to be met. And I was just eager to see what, people were saying now, what's different now from a year ago. And I guess in your case, it's this whole knowledge management effort that has bubbled up. And
well, the knowledge management effort has been an ongoing thing for the past couple of years, but for us, at least for me, the biggest thing that's changed is just me trying to focus on it in a way that it hasn't been done in the past. And, you know, we have some new staff who have all these ideas, and some of which are new and some of which are not new.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But just like trying to, another thing that I've been trying to do is just, you know, given that now we're in this bizarre, you know, everyone's working from home, we're not mailing anything, we're not, you know, we're trying to do all this, you know, digital stuff, but no one on staff except me, even like, they still all think of things as being a piece of paper that we're gonna send to, you know, mail out. And I'm like, we're not mailing it. We already know we're not mailing it.
Yeah.
You know?
I wonder if there would be any benefit, because I remember from the research, and I've seen obviously in other organizations where people get just stuck on that, is maybe it's worth doing, you know, like a couple-hour training session, like writing for the web or something like that.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we're not even at that point yet.
Okay. Okay, that's fair. I mean, you know, your people.
Yeah, no, I mean, so we have some new staff. As I said, we have a new research director who is actually, she is much more like thinking about stuff, presenting our research in more of a digital kind of way. And so she'll be like, oh, I have this great idea. I want to do an infographic on this new little survey that we just did.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, great. Let's talk about that. And the next thing I know, that infographic is a 13-page PDF. Like,
oops.
That is not.
Yeah.
That's not what we talked about. That's not the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
It has an infographic on the first page of the PDF.
Right. Yeah.
No,
but can't quite let go of that whole research and detail part. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah. So, so there is a certain amount of, we need to be able to write for the web and we need to focus on that a little bit more. But then there's also our research is so important that it has to be done in this academic way and it has to be written in this academic style.
Yeah.
You're just like, okay, but how about a verb in the first, you know, paragraph?
Yeah. I wonder, can you think of, I'm just riffing on this because you said it that way. I mean, one of the goals of the forum is to provide like tools and samples and things like that. Can you think of something that would help you help them kind of thing about just kind of changing the mindset?
Well, actually, I think one of the slides that you guys used yesterday, TJ, might be helpful, which was the
one on the word count?
Well, the one, I thought that was actually really, really interesting.
Yeah.
We don't have a problem with word count. We tend to
You have the opposite problem, right? You have the opposite problem with most people.
So many words, and what does it actually mean? No, I was thinking of the one about front-loading the content, front-loading the
titles and the headlines and the yeah.
So
I feel like there's something for you guys you want to provide that deep dive, but you also want to provide like a little bit of skimmable, like this whole idea of information set online that that you want to provide enough information to people so they know they're going in the right direction, so they know if they want to dive into that full PDF, you know. So you just need some signposts to indicate, you know, this is what you're looking for with the title, with a, you know, short description, like, you know, some intro copy that's in HTML for people that has, you know, headings or some indication of what you'll find in this PDF, maybe even like a table of contents of what is, you know, gonna, although if it's research, the table of contents might always be the same because it's always like, you know, like the same boring headings.
Yeah, although, I mean, I think in reality, if we could think of it as like, this is the bucket of what this content is about. It's
Mhm.
about
Right. The
summer
structure
programs, or
summary of
it's
it.
about professional development for lawyers, or it's about how to help your lawyers work from home, for heaven's
Mhm.
sake, because this is a huge thing that, suddenly everyone is doing, and not necessarily very well. But if we could think of the bucket and have a page that, here's the bucket that I know you're looking for, and here is some of the things that we have, maybe from most recent to oldest, because some people do want to see, comparison stuff, or,
Yeah.
what
Sure.
was it like 10 years ago versus what is it like now?
Well, yeah,
But,
especially with your data products, right? And information. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what can we, like you said, the signposts, like how can we help them figure out that this is what they want, and this is how they get to it.
Right.
So, we have actually our member volunteers are enthusiastic, and they're super engaged. They really want to start working on this, which is great. So if we can just kind of I want them to help us figure out what those buckets are, and then what to put into them.
Mhm.
So that's kind of
well, and that's where you could, I mean, you could, that's where something like Jen has this, you could try to automate something with a clustering algorithm, or you could do card sorting. I mean, it's a great idea to be using your volunteers this way to do some brainstorm on what the topics are, and then do some sort of, you could, I mean, in the old world before COVID, you could do this in person with sticky notes.
Right.
In the new world that's COVID, there are, plenty of online tools that you could do to group sticky notes together. So I forget. I'm big fan of sticky notes, but I'm trying to find virtual sticky notes.
Yeah. And it seems like, Lisa, too, moving toward, you were talking about the summaries, if you do start to move toward the structured content that I know we talked about earlier, there's a way to get them to write that stuff, right? Because they're the subject matter experts. So let them distill down the content into that, and use that as a starting point, maybe with just some of this COVID related stuff, because then it might even solve your search engine issue, that if you just expose that piece to Google, right, then the traffic will change.
Yeah.
But they won't see the actual research or whatever you're trying to protect for the member value.
Yeah, that was actually one of the things that I was thinking about during the session yesterday was, how can we accomplish this, but keep some of that stuff behind the member paywall for that member benefit, because there's less and less paper that we're sending you. It's like the tangible thing that says, here's what you get for your membership. So.
Right.
One of the things we're doing for APTA is we're showing, they have research that they haven't conducted, but that they give their members access to through a licensing agreement. And so we show the summary of the research above the paywall, and then we block everything else below the paywall, so that we can just give people, enough information to know, would this be interesting to you? And then, now consider, join us and get access.
Right. Like join.
Yeah. But again, that's that sort of concept of giving people enough information to help them make the decision about whether that's actually what they're, would be helpful or not for them. Because before they just had a title, and then you don't get access, and that was the end of the conversation.
Right. Right. We have that to a little bit, but I'm not even sure to start with if people are even getting far enough to see the title. So, so it should be interesting. We did a workshop with our volunteer group with Carrie Hain, where we talked about content modeling, and we started down that road. And the guy who's the chair of that group, that member volunteer group, is fabulous, and he's super engaged, and he totally gets it, and he ordered Carrie's book.
Nice.
That's great.
That's awesome.
He's on board. But not everyone in the group understands, they all have their day jobs and they're all,
Right,
you know,
right.
we're all working in crisis mode at this moment anyway. So
Right.
it's just kind of hard to get
Yeah.
people to focus. But also, like, our senior staff doesn't necessarily see the value.
Mm.
And I don't really know. I mean, you know, our executive director is just like, he fully admits that this is not his skill set. He's like, I don't get it. It doesn't
Sure.
make sense to me. It's not interesting to me, you know, so therefore.
Well, that's why I think, you know, it's two levels, right? It's making the case to show the exec or the senior leadership team what the return is going to be if you do invest the staff or volunteer time on it. And then just run a test. Like I said, focus on this COVID stuff. If you think that's what's going to have the most initial value and return, and just see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how long does it take? So that'll give you a measure of what total resource investment will be needed if you go down this road. And two, after 6 or 8 weeks, because we're still going to be in this, you know, situation, you'll see what the response is to the content. So it could be a way to just experiment.
Yeah. The other thing I'm trying to decide I'm trying to decide whether it would actually work or not, but I want to send the presentation from yesterday to all of my communications team and be like, okay, you guys, this is why we're doing this, and this is what we're trying to work toward, so that kind of we're all on the same page. I just don't know if I can, number one, I don't know if I can persuade them to take the time to do it when they're all doing, you know, their own multiple things anyway. And number two, if they do watch it, I don't want them to like start running on something without, you know, we need to be working together on this, not have like one person focusing over here and one person focusing over here.
Right.
So I've been trying to decide, like, can I send this to them, and is that an effective, but what I might do is just pull out some of the slides that I think were the most important and send those.
Yeah. I was going to say that. Or are you guys doing any like group get-togethers for lunch, or just huddles, team huddles and things like that? Or is everybody kind of zoomed out?
We have been trying to do, like, the communications team has been trying to get together once a week to just sort of talk about like what we're doing. So that was another thing. What I'd kind of like to do is have everybody watch the video on their own time, watch the webinar on their own time, and then talk about it.
I see.
Brainstorm about it in one of our staff or in one of our communications team meetings. Because we have a guy, most of our communications team is relatively new. So we have a new person working on our publications, and he wants to, you know, do sort of, he wants to, I mean, basically what he wants to do is, you know, structured content, and have the content that we're developing for these, whatever, 2 magazines become content that we're developing for one larger, whatever you want to call it, some type of publishing thing. And so that you can take those pieces and publish them in different ways, right? So he, I think, would be on board with it. And then the research person, I think, would be on board with it. So it's just a question of sort of like, can I direct them in the way that I want them to go?
Well, and like aligning the work that they want to do so that everyone's not off, as you were saying, everyone's not off doing their own, like trying to do it on their own, but like trying to snowball that all together into like, all right, what should we prioritize first? And, you know, I feel like it's always the sequencing. Like, I feel like sometimes it's always like that sequencing of like what makes sense to work on first. And, you know, sometimes like the priority for this person in publications is like actually the thing that needs to happen third, which is like a little hard to hear, and, you know, trying to get consensus around that is always a delicate.
Is there a
balancing
way
efforts.
that you can get that person to only do the magazine articles about COVID and do this
Yeah,
just to feed, you know, if that's the
the test
direction you
case. What if you?
go?
Yeah, that's a great.
Right. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe.
Because then you can have it as part of the experiment, but he's
Yes.
also making progress on his goal of starting to move his content that way.
Do you think they could be persuaded into, like, what if we have this big communication, not big communication, but like communications team experiment to try to persuade people that we then can spend more time or resources or staff or whatever on, you know, on doing this work. But if you can try to get people on board with focusing in on one thing that you can then all show together, like that would feel like good bang for your buck there.
Yeah. And that's what worked in the research study too, right? If people had like allies or at least one other department that was kind of coordinating or being cooperative with them, that moved them from kind of beginning to intermediate. So it just might give you a little kickstart.
I think that's like one of the hardest things to do, honestly, is like, is trying to make the case and prove that this is worthwhile to invest in is always, and trying to get that alignment, trying to, you know, and trying to move it from the Wild West to like a coordinated effort to show something, to get some buy-ins and allies. Like that's the hardest work.
Yeah. You should go read, Lisa. Courtney Ryers wrote when she won an award at ASAE, she wrote this kind of ode to content strategists. It's on the forum. You should go read it. It's just like, this is what you have to do. I mean, it's like storm the ramparts kind of thing. It brings a tear to my eye when I read it, but I hope it'll inspire you to march forward.
Yeah, well, you know, and this is just kind of such a weird time to be trying to do anything long term, anything that might require, you know, I feel like we're all trying to plan stuff that we don't even know if we can plan it. And so it's just all
the extra layer is definitely not a good layer to have to manage. I agree.
So
well, it sounds like you've got the right ideas.
Oh, totally.
You know?
Yeah. Well, you guys, I mean, like I said, that's exactly where I'm at right now. And you guys yesterday had really great ideas of like, how can I prove it? How can I show that we don't need all this nonsense when we need to consolidate and we need to make it clearer and we need to make it more useful and find out what. So we did that same work group did actually do some user case, like search needs, like they came up with a set of, we did a variety of surveys and we came up with a set of personas, and like this persona needs this and this persona needs this. And so, you know, we're sort of we made some progress there. And so now we just kind of need to like get those member volunteers to a point where they can understand what we're asking them for, and get our staff to a point where sort of we're all on the same page. And then we also need the governance piece is another giant piece that we are gonna just have to get our heads around. But
well, we went a little bit over today, but I appreciate you guys participating.
I appreciate you guys.
So fun to get together and talk about this stuff.
Yeah, we're geeks about it. So
And Lisa, I like that you're working in this sunset view while you're talking about everybody working from home. I'm like, whatever, you're outside.
Well, that is my Zoom background, because otherwise you would see my messy bedroom, and nobody wants that, including me. So my husband and my kids come in and out. And so I was like, no, we need something that you don't see all the stuff in the background.
Yeah. Separate from the real world. Yeah.
Well, Lisa, it was really nice to meet you. Thanks for coming to the talk yesterday.
To meet you.
That email will probably go out later.
Yeah, I really enjoyed talking to both of you guys. I miss seeing people in real life.
Yeah, I know. Hopefully soon, maybe next quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks,
Awesome.
Gina.
Take
Thanks,
care.
guys.
Bye, guys.
See you later.
Bye-bye.